Welcome back to the Woman's Word. This one is about being more than just a pretty face. I was sharing in the last Woman's Word a royal seed of a slave to my black sisters that I was just running the trail, and as I was, the Lord was encouraging me and the enemy was discouraging me. But a voice rose up inside of me and was just reminding me of who I am and reminding the enemy of who I am. He got so upset that you'll see there's a break in the very last Woman's Word. It's like it shuts down and then comes back up as I start to seek the Lord. It was awesome because I know the enemy doesn't want any of us to get free. He doesn't want us to hear the truth. But this particular message right here, this is for my white sisters. I am multi-ethnic on both sides on all sides of my family, but my maternal grandmother, her father was half Italian, half German Jew, and then he married black woman who was the daughter of a slave. And there's so much that comes with that, being multi-ethnic, particularly in this country. But I want to encourage you, particularly my white sisters, that's who this video is for, is that our culture, our European culture, is so rich and so beautiful. And in this day and age where truth is starting to come forth, we've seen very clearly that in very many cultures and lots of different ways, particularly in the history of the United States, that whites have been the oppressors, whites have been those who took over, colonized, murdered, raped, killed, blah, 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 blah. But that is not all of European history. That is not all of the history of whites in America. And there's so much more. And so I say that to say that in a lot of other groups, you see their identities connected with America, but then also with the continent from whence they came. Like you got African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, but whites are just white. But I submit to you that as a white woman, you're a European American, and there's no shame in that. There's a rich, beautiful history in Europe that we see every day in our art and in our culture and in our language. We see that every day in our history. We see the beauty of European culture all the time. But there is also some challenges in European culture that didn't just stay in Europe. They came to the Americas with us, and those challenges are still at work in the family structure. They're at work in our society, and they generally are used by the enemy to keep down women. So I want to encourage you to get an understanding of the European caste system. And that was a system that was a hierarchy. It was a social hierarchy that started with the monarchy and then all the other nobles who weren't necessarily part of the king's family, but they were still the nobility. And then there were the commoners. Now, when the colonists came to the Americas, the whole hope was to get away from that caste system, the caste system that actually spread throughout all of Europe. Everywhere in Europe, there was a caste system. It didn't matter whether you were in England or France or Germany, Italy, it didn't matter. Everybody was a part of that caste system. It existed throughout all of Europe. And the nobles intermarried each other, and the monarchs intermarried each other, and the commoners had to intermarry with each other. And if you were a commoner, even if you were a noble, your identity was based off of who your father was because you were born into whatever he did. So, those last names in England, we see those very clearly, like Smith. Those were blacksmiths and silversmiths. And so if you were born to a Smith, you became a Smith. And Thatcher, if you were born to a Thatcher, you made in fixed roofs. So you were born into an occupation, born into a social standing, and you stayed there, you and your generations. Now, the challenge with that is that when you got a system set up like that, it keeps people in bondage into an identity that other people put on you. But then when that's the system, and then you also put very specific gender roles into that, then it makes it even harder. And that was the case for women, and we see that even in America now. See, this is why I'm giving this history, because you got to break out of it. You got to be free from this, which now is it's not written. It's just sort of unspoken. It's there, but we don't ever address that it's there, because it is there, and it affects our girls today. It affects our women today, and it's time for us to put an end to it. It really is time for it to be addressed. So let's look at this. Women who were of the nobility were just a pretty face. People married you based off of how much money your father had, and then you were the trophy, and you didn't have a very fulfilling life because you were there to be the showpiece. Now, the common women, they worked hard, But anything could be done to or with the common women because there was no protection for them. Only the noble women were ladies. The common women weren't ladies. So the common women could be raped, they could be pillaged, they could be kidnapped, anything. They could take a common woman and do whatever they wanted to do because she was common. There was no protection for the common women. So either way, if you're a white woman in this society, either way, your identity is based off of other people. They tell you who you are and they can tell you what they can do to you. It was a terrible, terrible bondage. No matter who you were as a woman, that was bondage for you. So here we go. We come to the Americas, right? And we say, well, we're getting rid of this caste system. But here's the problem. The commoners were sent here against their will, sent like they were indentured servants and prisoners. They were the first slaves before Africans even came. That's who were the first slaves here in North America, were the common Europeans. Again, against their will. You can be snatched from your home and sent to the Americas. That's what happened. Then the nobles come and they don't want to do any work. But it's come, we come to find that everybody's got to work to make the colony succeed. And so the nobles start working and we start getting a little more intermixing. But you'll see socially there was always still a difference. In America, you see that now, where we have those who are doing very well, of the upper echelons of society, and they will never intermix with a commoner, a person who is of the lower economic status. And this is among whites. I'm not even dealing with other ethnic groups now. We're just talking about whites. Now, because it's unspoken, though those social pressures are there, it's not written. So there's actually nothing that addresses that because it's just social. It's not economic, so you don't get scholarships for poor white students. You don't, because it's not anything that we can point to historically that was documented. It's just social. It's just a mentality. So while you've got others who maybe are impoverished, you got African Americans, sometimes even Native Americans can get scholarships and things like that. Poor whites, you don't get those type of things. You can take a loan out, get financial aid, but you're not going to have scholarships just for that group because nobody thinks we even need to address that group. Then when you got among those who are still in the upper echelons of society, there is still the same pressure to be the pretty face, to make sure everything is in line, you say the right things, you do the right things, you walk the right way, especially if you're a Southern girl, because that culture was a completely different culture. You never leave out the house without your face on. You got to make sure that everything is in place and you speak the word well spoken and, you speak when you're spoken to. And though your whole environment may not have been all of that, those pressures still exist for women in America today. You've got to look a certain way. You've got to be a certain way. And the identity for women, particularly white women, because the European history has been wiped out. It's as if those who exist in America who are white, they just started to be in existence during the 17th and 18th century. Prior to that, your culture didn't exist, when that's not true. So there's a whole culture that's been wiped out. So our young people have no identity, particularly those who are white, don't have a background, a history that's rich for them to connect to. So they're connecting with everything. We got white young people with gauges, that's African, and dreadlocks, that's from the islands, and they, all these different things. They got the tattoos of the Japanese characters and on their arms and stuff like that, because they're trying to connect with culture, because their culture has been ripped from them, because America said we're starting something new, when it's not new. It really was very European. And we've gotten rid of that, being rebellious and independent. We've gotten rid of the European culture and left our children without history, without culture that they can call their own, or the culture that they do have, which is just America's little 400 years, is filled with their ancestors being oppressive to other people groups. So now they're ashamed there. So who am I then culturally? Then when you add to it the pressure of a girl to either stay in her place or to do the things that everybody expects of her, and to look the way everybody expects her to look, and look like this one, and to have this type of face and this type of body, and to carry herself this way, and to marry this type of man. When you add all of those pressures, our children are lost. Now, I've seen this in young girls, and I've seen this even in women. There's this terrible uncertainty, this lack of confidence in who she is. Like, you'll see it. I'm going to show you the posture. A lot of our young girls, particularly the young white girls, they stand kind of like this, like they're apologizing for being there. And when they talk, the hands are going, and it's like, I'm going to totally say this quickly because I know you don't really want to hear what I have to say. And we allow them to continue to go through life. And not just girls. When a girl lacks that confidence in herself, she goes into a woman who lacks that confidence in herself. These are our nurses, our teachers, our doctors, same women, same young women, now grown women, in families, in marriages, now willing to speak up for themselves. And this is certainly not every woman, because there's certain lots of women, particularly lots of white women, who have just said, you know, to heck with that. I'm going to be me, and I'm going to take control of my destiny. We've seen lots of women like that. But what has the world told them? That they have to give up their femininity to do it. That you got to be like a man. You got to surpass a man. And so then we get this masculinity and this overbearing presence that comes up out of a woman, because she's trying so hard to come out of that box. When God has a beautiful answer, which is right in the middle. It is a confidence that does not have to prove itself. It is an assurance that I am supposed to be here. And the way I look is how I'm supposed to look. And the way I speak is the way I'm supposed to speak. And how I choose to dress is what I choose to do. It is my expression of my identity to the rest of the world, and it is fine. See, that is the middle ground that God has for us. A boldness that does not have to be explained, and an identity that certainly does not have to be apologized for. I just want to encourage you to see that there is so much more that has been placed in you than just what people want to take from you, just what people want to take out of you, just more than the box that people want to put you in or the face that they want you to wear. You allow God to pull you out of that. Take time to look at what are your insecurities, what are your fears, who do you identify with when you look at who you are as a woman. You know, who are you? You need to know that. And it needs to be connected to your history, but it also needs to be unique to who you are, where you want to go and what you want to do. It should build on what the people who did, you know, people who came before you did. It should build on it, but it shouldn't be limited to it. So you got to have a pride in your history and in your past, but you also have to have a pride in who you are now that gives you the freedom to make the choices that you can live with, the choices that bring the best out of you and make you a blessing to the rest of the earth. Be free from the box. Be free from the pretty face that everybody says you have to be, that hides the emotion and is afraid to really be who you are. Be free from the images. Be free from the shame. Be free from the disconnect from your history and your past, but connect with all that God has done to bring you to the place where you are right now, that you would be a thriving individual who has been developed on the backs and on the foundation of what a lot of other people have done. That's who you are. And that is unique, and that is beautiful, and it does not need an apology. You stand. You be the woman He created you to be, and you be that woman to the best of your ability, and don't apologize for it, and don't look back. Enjoy being you. That is the blessing that God has given you, that you can enjoy it, and then we can enjoy being around you. Be blessed.